If any of the things that I suggest disagree with anything that your instructor tells you to do, go with what your instructor says. Always. Absolutely. So today, I've got a well-known puzzle that I really enjoy and that I think can help us understand the importance of punctuation. Punctuation is one of those pieces of language that's really only used when we're writing. Punctuation indicates certain things about spoken language, and proper punctuation can be essential to understanding that piece of communication as it's written. Punctuation can also be important in reading something aloud in the proper way, but we can work that in reverse too. Reading a piece aloud can sometimes help us to know where and how we need to punctuate. So here's the puzzle. It starts off unpunctuated, and the point is to put all the proper punctuation in all the proper places. There are at least 2 ways to punctuate the passage. I'll read it first as is, entirely unpunctuated, and I think you'll see immediately why punctuation is important. Ready? Dear John, I want a man who knows what love is all about. You are generous, kind, thoughtful people who are not like you, admit to being useless and inferior. You have ruined me for other men. I yearn for you. I have no feelings whatsoever. When we're apart, I can be forever happy. Will you let me be yours, Gloria? Good lung capacity right there. So obviously it's a letter, a Dear John letter. Dear John letters came to popular attention during World War II, as some women who'd been separated from their husbands, fiancés, boyfriends would send a letter about how they were moving on. And John was the most popular male name of mid-20th century America. But it's also a puzzle. Now, it's popular to describe math as language, or language as mathematics, but they're different in ways I think this puzzle points at, especially in terms of how language can create tone. The punctuation doesn't just change the message, it changes the tone. So sometimes, not always, commas indicate a slight pause, not as long as, say, the pause after a sentence. This means that reading aloud and trying to figure out where we would pause can help, and we can probably also begin to place periods. But we need to be careful, because placing any piece of punctuation in any particular spot can lead to needing punctuation in other spots, or conflicts with other punctuation in other spots. So this is a letter, and I know it's a letter, so I can go ahead and I can put a comma after John, and I can hit return. Okay. So, Dear John, I want a man who knows what love is all about. So I have 2 options here, right? On the one hand, I could put a period there and say, I want to know, or I want a man who knows what love is. On the other hand, I could put one here, and it could be, I want a man who knows what love is all about. Now that's going to do a few things depending on which one I do. It's going to determine which word after that period gets capitalized, but it's also going to determine the way that that next sentence works out. So just to kind of keep my options open, that I have 2 places I can put that period, I'm going to go ahead and put it in both, but put it in brackets. And those are now both in red, so I know that they're optional. And maybe as I read the rest, I can figure out which one works. So next sentence, you are generous, kind, thoughtful. So it seems like we might have another place for a period. And again, notice that I'm reading it out, and as I read it out, it kind of helps me figure out where some things should go. So next sentence, maybe. People who are not like you admit to being useless and inferior. That, again, sounds like we've probably got another good sentence that could end right there. Okay, so you have ruined me for other men. Again, that sounds like a pretty complete sentence. And I think we're also starting to understand the tone. We're getting the pattern, right? This is a positive letter, actually. Dear John, I want a man who knows what love is. I'm still not sure what the all about part is, but the rest of these seem pretty positive. Okay. So next sentence, I yearn for you. I have no feelings whatsoever when we're apart. I can be forever happy. Will you let me be yours? Okay, so I yearn for you sounds like that's a sentence. I have no feelings whatsoever when we're apart. That sounds like a sentence. I can be forever happy. That could be. And will you let me be yours? Now, this one also sounds like a sentence, but it doesn't sound like a declarative. It sounds like a question. So we go ahead and put a question mark there, move Gloria down, and we've actually got a really nice letter. The only problem that we still have is all about. What do we do with this? Well, we can't delete it because that's not one of the rules. All we can do is add punctuation. So I want a man who knows what love is all about. That sounds okay. So we can get rid of that, and that's one way to punctuate that. But remember, it's not the only way. So I've cleared away all the punctuation other than the comma after John. Gloria is underlined with a red underline, I don't know why. Anyway, and it really all comes down to where I place that first period. So in the previous version, we said, I want a man who knows what love is all about, period. But we had the option for placing it after is. So what if we keep it there and see if we can make that next sentence make sense? So it starts, all about you are. Okay, all about you are kind, or all about you are generous, kind, thoughtful people who are not like you. So if I put that period there, those first two sentences take on a really different tone. Dear John, I want a man who knows what love is. All about you are generous, kind, thoughtful people who are not like you. Well, that changes my tone, but I do have a couple other pieces of punctuation that I need. And if I forgot to put these in during the last version of this, I definitely need to make sure that I put them in now. So all about you are generous. So all about you are generous, comma, kind, comma, thoughtful, people who are not like you. Wow, that's a rough sentence. So, next sentence. Admit to being useless and inferior. So this is not just an I'm leaving you letter. This is an I hate you letter. But we got to keep up with it because it can get tricky. You have ruined me. For other men I yearn. For you I have no feelings. Okay, so before what we said was, you have ruined me for other men, right? So like, I can't be with anybody else after I've been with you because you're so awesome, right? But what if we end that sentence a little bit early? And instead we say, you have ruined me. For other men I yearn. You got to be dramatic in the name of education. So anyway, for you, I have no feelings whatsoever. When we are apart, I can be forever happy. Now, before I go any further, so up here, the line, for other men I yearn, you might be tempted to kind of put a comma right here between men and I. For other men I yearn. We could flip it around and we could say, I yearn for other men, right? And instead it says, for other men I yearn. But this is also a pretty short sentence, so I think a comma would be a little bit out of place here. The next sentence, for you, I have no feelings whatsoever. We could be justified if we wanted to put a comma here, if that's the way that you read it. But you could also read it as, for you, I have no feelings whatsoever. I would take the comma after you, and I would put it after feelings so that it read, for you, I have no feelings whatsoever. And I will admit that some of these constructions are a little bit strange just to kind of fit within the parameters of the puzzle. When we're apart, I can be forever happy. I would go ahead and put a comma after apart. Probably wouldn't phrase it like that either, but again, it's a puzzle. So then, will you let me be yours, Gloria? That doesn't sound like it makes sense. given the rest of the very negative tone of this letter. But again, with the right punctuation, we can make it make sense. So let's say that Gloria decided to end it formally, not the relationship, but the letter. Now, the last version, the last sentence was, will you let me be yours, Gloria? It was a question. We're still going to end with a question, but it's going to be a different question. And here it's going to be, will you let me be? And since I've put that as our ending question, we can say that maybe Gloria was just being a little formal as she ended. Yours, but really not, Gloria. So I've capitalized all the beginnings of the sentences. I put those commas in where they needed to be. And I've set our two letters here side by side so that you can see, again, we haven't changed any wording. It's really an issue of tone. The content of the two letters is very, very different, but that has entirely to do with punctuation. Finally, you might have noticed the overabundance of exclamation points in this episode's title. Why? For fun. I'm a comic book fan. There and in other informal situations, like a YouTube video, you can get away with that sort of thing to show excitement. And getting your punctuation right is exciting because it means your message is that much clearer. Maybe someday we'll talk about the interrobang. Come and see me again about your writing. See ya.